Spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's been a while. We had a very abbreviated Spoilerin time from Dragon Con 2 weeks ago. So it's been about 3 weeks since we actually spoiled stuff. We're going to talk about The Shield Season 3, Episode 4. But we're also going to do something, I don't know, this may be a first for Spoilerin time, Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, man, it's we're actually going to have a live Spoilerin where I am going to, because I've been more sensitive to spoilers than you have. You've maintained that it's probably fine and it doesn't matter or whatever. So live on this program, recorded for all of you who are not watching live, I am going to actively spoil and tell you from beginning to end my experience of going through the last episode of The Leftovers. I watched the last 2 episodes back-to-back this morning. And a spoiler alert to the spoiler, it was so emotionally draining that I texted Tom saying, I don't think I can not talk about this tonight. Everybody wants to know.
Even before you got that text, I had the idea, because you had sent me a note this morning saying, hey, I'm going to watch the last 2 episodes of The Leftovers. I had watched The Garveys at their best, which is the second to last already. But I was like, man, once 10:30 rolls around, I'm in DTNS land, and I'm just not going to be able to watch anything. So I did not watch The Prodigal Son Returns. But I thought, even before you sent that text message, I'm like, you know what? I'm the one who's always out there saying, it doesn't matter if you get spoiled. You're still going to enjoy it, right? So let's put that to the test.
Yeah, well, let's
spoil
start.
me on the season finale of The Leftovers, and then I'm going to watch it. And next week, we'll see how that affected my view.
Well, let's start with what you and I have both watched together, at separate times, of course, is The Garveys at their best was an utterly heartbreaking episode for me, in that, like, the moment it began, you don't realize how broken this world is until you see the stark relief of the joy on everyone's faces. And even, like, you know, the Garveys are having marital issues and they're fussing over, you know, he's hiding the fact that he's smoking and he's not honest about the fact that he doesn't want a dog or whatever. How adorable are those problems, right? Given where we see the world
problems.
Yeah, right?
In the context of that world.
Well, but even then, it's kind of it was heartbreaking to see Jill as this adorable, ebullient kid. Also, side note, I was skeptical when she first came on. I'm like, that's the same actress, and she's supposed to be a couple of years younger. How are they going to? They made it work. Oh my God, I believed it 100%. Yeah. And at first, like, the fact that she showed up, I was like, what is this? Some kind of sideways universe? What is it with Lindelof and his sideways happy universes? And then I was like, oh wait, no, this is just leading up to it. And then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, I bet this is. Wait, are we going to get to see the departure, like, from their perspective? And it was first of all, Jill, again, seeing Jill pre and post, knowing her only as the jaded, bitter, broken, miscreant, juvenile delinquent, and meeting the girl who looked an awful lot like my daughter was painful. It was painful. And when they get to the departure, one of my favorite moments was, you had them making the circuit. You had this joy. You had Jill doing the science experiment with her older brother, everybody getting along, and the confusion when, well, the circuit's broken now. The light turned off, and then, like, and showing it. And then, of course, Garvey, Kevin having his this intentional moment of, like, I don't know what it is, this midlife crisis I'm having, but I don't think I want this. I'm a bad man. Let me act like a bad man does and have sex, not with my wife. And to have her, pull a magic trick out from him, and he's just standing there naked, not knowing what to do. And then, and then of course, they don't say it explicitly, but you see what's his wife's name? Do you remember? Mrs. Garvey?
Because she's so silent the rest
of
the time.
Right?
I don't remember her name.
Whatever. Kevin's
wife.
Lori looks over at the ultrasound, and it's implied that the fetus was taken from her on there. It was just utterly heartbreaking.
Well, and Nora, who's one of my favorite characters in this series, Nora, the one who had her pain taken away, that might have been the most heartbreaking moment of them all, because she's losing her patience and she's snapping at her family right as they're gone. All three of them.
Well, okay. And first of all, who's that actor that is famous that I recognize but don't know his name that played Nora's wife or husband?
I don't. It's that guy that.
Chat room will have it in like 3
mention
seconds.
him on IMDb.com when I look it up in a minute.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, but this is what's amazing is it starts off with Nora and you fall for her family. You're like, oh my God, she's got that family. They're so supportive, and she's going back to work, and she's the one who helps get this mayor elected, and this is great. And because she's clearly has such a loving relationship with all of them and does so well with them, again, as a dad, it's utterly, utterly heartbreaking that the last words she spoke were to curse at her child for using one hand and to turn around and they're
oh my
gone.
God, that was the guts ripped out of you. Absolutely.
And on top of that, like to know from the story,
he's Lucas Goodwin in House of Cards.
That's what it is. Yes. Okay,
that's who that guy is.
Excellent. Thank you.
His name's Sebastian Arcellus.
Yes. No, he was fantastic. So, and plus knowing that she's like famous for being the only one who lost her entire family all at once, heartbreaking, painful.
Now, but another thing, which is probably the same reason I like watching disaster movies, was those moments where, and I got to give Lindelof and friends credit, they didn't bash you over the head with it. You're at a party, and then you just see the minister's wife walk by.
Yeah.
And then she has a couple lines later, but it's not like, hey, this is the lady in the wheelchair who can't talk. It's just like you kind of had to notice it.
Wait a
to
minute.
really jump out at you.
I didn't notice it.
Did you not?
I thought she was one of the departed.
No, she gets hit by the car. She's in a vegetative state. And remember, he has the housekeeper in the earlier episode who's getting mad at him because, he just basically abandons her to be taken care of by the housekeeper.
I forgot all about that. You are 100% right.
And I love that they just like, oh yeah, there she is. Walking around normal, talking.
How amazing was it to have that party be the central event where you see Garvey's dad.
Oh, as the
with
chief.
all of his faculties, charming, with a gutter mouth, well beloved by all, as sharp as a tack, and at the top of his game, give or take.
Giving the fatherly advice.
It was and calling out his son. Where he was like, I almost believed your speech, and he's like, what is it you want? He's like, I don't know. Is this it? He's like, look, all you kids, you want to tilt your windmills, you want to save the world. Turns out that this is going to be it. You're going to be a dad to these kids. And again, like as somebody, who's entering that age where it's like I'm looking at the other side. I'm like, holy crap, there's going to be like a best it's going to get. And I'm like, wow. It just really resonated, and it was gorgeous and poetic. And how great was it to understand why Lori would join Patty's cult when Patty came in beforehand saying, no, today's the day. Something's going to happen, and it's going to be huge.
And Lori having all the proper, like, now you've said that before. Why is this different? And it's like, oh, and then it is.
Yeah.
And to see Patty so unsure of herself, so uncertain, so hesitant, and to know, like you just intuit, like as soon as what her premonition was turns out to be correct,
right?
She just gains all of her confidence. She's like, well, I know what to do in this situation. I've been training for this for years, essentially.
Okay, so I'm going to spoil the hell. I'm going to do the Brian Brushwood pretending we're on a road trip radio play, trying to remember what I saw today.
All right, lay it on me.
Okay, so first of all, when we last, now we're back to real time, right? What's the last thing we saw? We saw Patty stab herself in the neck.
Oh, right.
And go out, right? So it's like it opens, you got Kevin Garvey, and by the way, I apologize for anyone listening who has a better memory than mine. He's hanging out, smoking, just like, what the hell am I going to do? Cut to car racing in, peels out around a corner, races up, skids to a halt right in front of him, and out comes Reverend Jameson, who's like, hey, I took a wrong turn. I called you. He's like, my battery died. And he's like, well, what's going on? And so they walk in, and it's clear they had some kind of conversation, and he admitted some amount of what's going on. And he walks over towards her. He's like, "Whoa, what are you gonna do?" He's like, "I was gonna close her eyes." He's like, "You can't. This is a crime scene now." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "You said she stabbed herself. You said that." He's like, "Yeah, but nobody will believe that." And he's like, and with this calm and ease that comes from whatever peace of mind he has with everything, he's like, "Well, I believe you." And he's like, "Yeah, but you know, it's like I kidnapped her, I beat her, I whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, but then you decided to let her go and she stabbed herself. Look, this is what she does. She knew this would hurt you. And so, of course, you know, I totally believe you." And he goes to reach again. He's like, "Look," he's like, "Father, if you touch her, then we're in this together." And then he just reaches over, closes her eyes. He's like, "Then we're in this together." Oh, geez. And then he's like, "Got some shovels in the car." Which, at the one hand, it's like this freaking priest, being accessory to what might be a murder or whatever. But on the other hand, it makes perfect sense. Like, Jameson's a man of conviction, and if he believes Garvey, then he's like, "Look, she killed herself. She has no family. What's it going to help to involve the law and make you look bad? Let's just consecrate the ground. Let's put her in it." And they dig a grave together. They put her in, and that's
friendship.
There's kind of a touching scene where he asks Garvey to read the words. He's like, "I ain't gonna read the words." He's like, "Why not?" He's like, "Because I don't believe them." And Jameson's like, "Well, she didn't either." And so he starts to read this passage from the Bible, and it's really poetic and touching and moving. And he gets choked up in the middle of it, and as a viewer, I get weirdly choked up about their screwed up relationship with each other. And then they head on back. And Garvey, or they wash off and they get clean. Sort of a baptismal vibe to the washing off of their hands, as you know, because he brings water and a change of clothes. And then they head on back, and Garvey kind of falls asleep in the car. Cut to shoot. I'm gonna need chat room to remind me. I can't remember. Cut to Jill, who joined the Guilty Remnant. Right?
Oh, right, because she showed up at the Guilty Remnant and was like, "Hey, what's up, Mom?"
Right, exactly. So she sits down and already refuses to talk. In fact, she just writes her stuff down. She grabs a cigarette out of the cigarette bucket, and her mom's like, "Nope, not tonight. Too dangerous." And Liv Tyler's all like, "Hey, what's up? Are we going or no?" And she's like, "Hold on," you know, and she's trying to tell her daughter not to be apart. And Jill responds by just walking over, taking off all her clothes and putting on white, and then sitting down. And she's like, "All right, I guess tonight's the night." And it's clear that the Guilty Remnant has been building up to something. And so it's clear that they go off to whatever their shenanigan is, and you don't know what it is. And you cut to the next morning, Nora walks down the stairs, turns left, and there are her family sitting at the exact table, right in the same positions. You just saw them last episode when they vanish. And you see their plastic faces and their dead eyes. And you realize they're mannequins.
Right, because the Guilty Remnant ordered that huge truck full of mannequins.
Right, and they custom made every single one to exactly look like the person that vanished and put them back where they vanished. And Nora just melts. She just is just destroyed. And it's like, even watching it, I just felt ill because it looked close enough. I'm like, "Whoa, they're back." And I'm like, what's wrong with them? And I just felt this sense of violation knowing that they went in there. Cut to, they're on Jameson. So there's a horrific sequence where Kevin Garvey wakes up and only to be grabbed by two orderlies, and Jameson apologizing, saying, "I'm sorry, I had to." And they throw him in the loony bin with his dad. And he's sitting there trying to keep it together, and he's saying, you know, it's like, keep it together, basically. And then in the cell alone, saying, I'm not crazy. And in slides the National Geographic magazine, and he leafs through it, and he says, and there's a handwritten note in there that says, "If you shut the fuck up, they'll let you watch TV." And he's like, "What?" And so he shuts up, and then the orderly lets him out. and he sits down next to his dad watching Perfect Strangers, and they have this conversation about how, welcome, you're crazy like me. He's like, no, I can't be. And his dad does his crazy, like talking to no one thing. And then and he says, no, don't turn around. He's talking, and Kevin goes to turn. He's like, no, don't turn around. And then Kevin hears Patty say, no, let him turn around. And then he turns around and sees Patty there smoking. And Patty just says, like, you're in, man. This is it. This happened. This is what happened. And Patty does this, like, messed up. She straddles him and sexualizes and, like, starts kissing on him and stuff. And he's like, what? He's like, we're going to be together a long time. You're going to leave right now. And then he wakes up. Like, it was all a fake out moment, right? Dream sequence, right? Okay, which you would think I would be mad at. But I was like, but everything's so messed up. I don't know what to think, right? And, so then they stop at the diner. I believe the same diner that Patty was at that time. But he goes to the bathroom and sees blood pooling underneath one of the stalls and opens it. And it's Dr. Hugs-a-Lot, who is dying. I forget. Did he get shot? He get stabbed? Or why was he dying? Didn't somebody stab him?
Yeah, I think somebody stabbed him.
Okay, well,
That's
there
right.
he is. And he very genially says, hi, I'm going to die in the next minute. Also, I need you to make a wish. He's like, make a wish? What are you talking about? He's like, well, here's the thing. I'm dying. I'm really going to die. I think I might have been a fraud all this time. But if I can grant your wish, you don't even have to tell it to me. Just think it in your mind. Then I'll know I wasn't a fraud as I die. And so here, put Tom on here. I want to see his reactions to all this stuff. And so Kevin kind of has this moment, and he doesn't say what his wish is, but given the last episode, I would imagine has something to do with his family getting back together or something. And there's this gorgeous bit of acting as Dr. Hugs-a-Lot, his eyes kind of go wide, and a genuine grin spreads across his face. Because it means to him not only is he granting a wish or understanding what the guy wants, but he knows he's not a fraud, and he just says granted, and then he falls down dead. And then those federal agents kick the door in. They put him in cuffs. They're like get him, and they cut to him answering questions, and nearing the end of the interview. And Jameson walks up. He's like, why are you doing this? This guy's police. He's the chief of police. And he's like, wait, you're a cop? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, why didn't you say so? He's like, well, I'm off duty. What does it matter? And he's like, oh, well, get out of here. And so they get out of here. And they get back to the city where the blowback is happening against the guilty remnant. It is complete chaos. It is fires set. There's a woman running around with a gun shooting at them, and Garvey tries to defuse it, and she's like, you don't know what they did, and they go off and they shoot. And he finds Liv Tyler, who's all beat to hell, and he's like, what did you do? What did you do? And she just writes down, we made them remember, and the whole town is like on a free for all. You remember the older couple that had the mentally handicapped guy? Like,
right.
All of the guilty remnant houses are on fire. There's a bonfire in the middle. You see that couple take the giant faux version of their son and throw him in the fire where his face begins to melt or whatever. They walking around trying to control the chaos, and outruns Lori from one of the houses, fighting with just getting her beat to hell, and he recognizes, runs over, just pops the guy hitting Lori, and Lori's screaming at the top of her lungs, Jill. This is the only time you've ever heard her speak since she joined the Guilty Remnant, right? And so you look and you just see this fire. It's like obvious that this whole place is going up in flames. So, but again, it's another fake out because he gets in there and he finds Jill, rescues her, takes her out, and then and there's this moment, this awkward reunion, right? But then cut to a note being written, and it's Nora narrating the note. Dear Kevin, I felt like I should tell at least somebody I cared about, and you're the closest thing I have to it. You're a great guy. But I just realized this is a broken civilization, and there's nothing for me here. I've been pretending for years. I can't, I've been pretending like there's another life for me. There isn't. I'm out. And it sounds like a freaking, again, another fake out. It sounds like a suicide note because I'm convinced she's going to put a bullet in her head because the visuals are she's putting the mannequins in their beds to go to sleep, kissing them on the forehead. I'm like, all right, she's lost it. But it turns out near the end of the letter, it's clear that she's like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm leaving town. And, I guess the only other thing I left out was the oldest son, the chick who had a girl and realized she wasn't special. She abandons the baby and just splits, and so he's left with that baby. And so
wait, how was Jill and Lori and Garvey a fake out?
Well, because it was clear that Jill was dead. Like Lori was howling as if Jill was dead. I mean, like that kind of wailing. And then instead, Garvey goes in and saves the day. Like I was convinced.
That's what I would have expected.
I did not. Okay. Like again,
right.
like this is a show that hasn't pulled a lot of punches. So it's like I would not have surprised me for them to kill.
That
off.
doesn't seem like a fake out to me. That just seems like, oh, okay, so he shaved her. Fine.
Well, it was effective suspense.
Nora
right?
is definitely a fake out.
Right. Correct.
Gotcha.
And then,
all right.
So Nora goes to deliver the letter, and is going up to Kevin's house. When you see her turn to her right, just as Kevin and Jill walk around the corner to show up, and you see Nora reach over to pick something up, and it's the baby from Christine that got abandoned because his oldest son, I guess, left the baby on the doorstep to go visit his mom real quick or whatever. You'll understand when you see it, but all of a sudden it's clear, like again, fake out. All that leaving town or whatever, like you see the joy on her face because she's discovered this baby and has meaning to her life or whatever. And that's it was painful and gut wrenching, and I was exhausted by the time it was over, and it was really, really good. And here's the amazing part is we talked about what a pain in the butt the show was early on because there were so many moving parts, so many pieces that you had to be introduced with to learn how they all go together. And I realized they're all real people to me because I kept saying to myself, I can't imagine what they went through. And of course, the easiest way to imagine is imagine it, with you and your kids. But I was like, no, but it didn't happen to me. It happened to these people who are real people in my mind. And it struck me all at once. It was amazing. It was a sucker punch to the gut. It was amazing.
And so it just ends with the baby. That's it.
I think so. And then there's like fireworks and a chorus line of girls or whatever.
Okay.
But it's like, I don't know. Well, I want you to watch it and see what I missed and tell me. But it was great.
Wow, I wasn't expecting you to actually give me a blow-by-blow of the entire episode, but that's cool. I felt like I was watching it.
Yeah, I wanted to see how well I remembered it, and I wanted you to experience it. So,
and I guess you sort of told us what you thought about stuff as it went along, so it's still...
Well, plus also, it's not like you could really comment on. Well, I guess you could if you trusted me, but don't trust me. I want to hear next week.
You're an unreliable narrator.
All right, so you tell me about The Shield, episode 4 of season 3.
Let's go to The Shield. It's episode 4, Streaks and Tips. The decoy squad and the strike team go head to head to solve a carjacking case, and the bet is that the team that doesn't arrest the perpetrator has to streak through the barn.
Okay.
So this is like the sitcom episode of The Shield, right? The strike team and the decoy squad have a bet, but it doesn't feel that way when you're watching it. It only feels that way when I try to describe it because this episode does very little to advance the overall arc, right? Until the very end. But most of the episode is really a procedural where you do have a little bit of character development between Dutch and Claudette because Dutch doesn't feel like he can conduct the proper investigations in his own case. It's different than the carjacking case. It's a poisoning case without Claudette. And then you have this nice role reversal where Dutch plays the bad cop and Claudette comes in and plays the good cop and gets the confession out of the guy for killing it. So that's nice character development there. But most of the story is the decoy squad and the strike team going after this carjacker. And it's a stone cold whodunit at first until they figure out, okay, it was this guy, it wasn't this guy. And then there's a little bit of the tension of the strike team and Aceveda, etc. But the important thread through this episode is Shane not getting along with the new guy, and it becoming very apparent that he just doesn't want to get along with him. And Vic sort of comes down on Shane's side slightly, but also tells Shane, like, look, you've got to get along with him. I want him as part of the team. We need outside eyes. I think we can trust him. We aren't going to bring him in on the money train, but it keeps us honest, et cetera, et cetera. And so finally, at the very end of the episode, before the streaking has happened, Vic goes over to, wish I could remember the new guy's name now.
It's like, I want to say, like, it's not Deshaun, or is it, it's Dan.
I want to say like Danny or something, like Davon.
Wait,
anyway, he goes over to him and says, look, I need you and Shane.
Is it Trayvon?
Is it Trayvon? Yes, I think that might be.
Okay.
No, that's not totally wrong. In fact, that's embarrassingly wrong.
Wait, I mean, you're talking about the black guy, right?
Yeah. I'm just going to look it up.
Yeah, whatever.
Now I feel shitty that I can't remember this guy's name. Especially because
I want to say it started with a D, but I could be wrong.
Especially what happens to him at the end of this episode. He deserves
oh, that's
to have
right.
his name.
What does happen?
Yeah. Because basically that Vic says, you guys need to get along. Tavon, not Trayvon.
Okay, I was close.
So
I was
you were
close.
very close.
Yeah, you're not embarrassing wrong. Just
like, oh, so you think everybody's named Trayvon Martin?
All right.
So it's Tavon, Tavon.
Fictitious person that was racist of you to say to me.
He goes to Tavon. He says, look, I need you to work it out. You guys just talk. So Tavon goes over to Shane's house. Shane comes home, finds Tavon with his hand on his fiance. Shane's going to get married, belly, because she's pregnant, which we found out at the end of last episode. And he's a little bristly, but Tavon's like, look, man, I just want us to work out. I want us to get along. Right. And then she's like, I'm going to go check on the laundry. You guys talk. So Shane and Tavon start talking. And of course, it devolves. It starts with Tavon like, I just want this to work out. And Shane like, well, you know your place. It'll work out. And Tavon's like, well, what do you mean know my place? And then it comes to blows. Then they start fighting. And then at one point, is it his fiance who picks up the iron and hits him?
Yeah, it is. It's not even. Yeah. It's not even Shane. It's his fiance.
Not even Shane. And he starts stumbling around, and then he stumbles out, and Shane's bloody, and Tavon doesn't really know what's up. And then, of course, he's driving. He's unsteady because head wound, and he ends up drifting off to the side, hitting a van, and getting thrown through the window. And that's the last thing you see is Tavon presumably dead on the street.
I know what happens next, but I will not say anything except for I hope you are enjoying it. Did you find that it was kind of like a relief to take a break from the big story, or was it just a waste of time?
Sometimes, especially in season 1 and a little bit in season 2, these procedural breaks, I was like, well, it's good to take a break. You can't just hammer on the arc all the time. But they weren't that interesting to me. This one was a really well-told story. They're getting the procedural element down. It's better shot. They're taking more risks, or maybe they're just moving closer to the present, and so it feels like they're taking more risks. But we had some really interesting scenes where they show up to look for one of the perpetrators of the carjacking, and we see them through the window with jazz playing as if we're the neighbor who's watching.
Yeah.
And then the next scene is you hear that music in the background, and the neighbor's out on the porch like, he ain't there. And you're like, oh, that was a really interesting way to get into that. And so there's more of that kind of stuff going on just in the craft of creating the episode that's fun. And the carjacking mystery was well put together. It wasn't very obvious what had happened. And the strike team versus the decoy squad streak bet was certainly fun. And I actually, the episode doesn't end with Tavon on the street. The episode ends with the streaking. And of course, the leader of the decoy squad marches slowly after. The rest of his squad just races through naked, but he plays it up like, fine, I'm going to own the situation, right? I'm going to show it off. And then everybody's laughing about it and breaking up. And then Vic turns to the tall blonde guy and says like, "Ah, man, I wish Shane and Tavon could have been here to see this."
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I'm going to say about that because I won't spoil you on the remainder of the Shield.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, this is going to cause more problems than the money train, but the money train's still out there simmering. Aceveda is still headed for his election, and Claudette is still positioning. So it's all cooking.
So many things I want to say, but I won't. I'll say thank you for joining us for It's Spoilerin Time. Don't forget that you get Spoilerin Time early if you're a patron of our fine show. So head to patreon.com/Cordkillers and you could get it day and date, the same day as the actual Cordkillers episode.
We'll see you later.
Yeah.